So as we all know, it is going to be difficult to keep kids engaged in a virtual environment. So these are 12 ideas for implementing more creativity in your online lessons and keep those kids engaged. You know why? Because the desire to create is one of the deepest yearnings of the human soul. And if you can reach kids at that level, you've got them hooked on learning. Keep in mind that some of these ideas are going to require some supplies, some of them very basic, some of them, more complicated. So you might have to give parents a list of like, hey, here's the supplies your kid needs for first semester. Or maybe you have a kit. Maybe it's such a specialized type of material that you just have kits that kids can check out. Don't forget about brainstorming. Before any creative pursuit, it's important to take at least a few minutes just to generate some wacky, wild ideas, as many as possible, even ideas that won't work in the end. That kind of gets that creativity going. And then to have them share those ideas before they even begin, it kind of helps them to get more ideas and to really get something that's of value. We complain that learners want to be spoon-fed, but then we won't let them hold the spoon. Let kids hold the spoon, okay? That's the only way they're going to learn how to be responsible human beings. Okay, number 1, sketch notes. This is when kids use drawings and keywords to take notes. There's no right or wrong way to do this. You might want to have some guidelines for kids just to get them started, but don't overdo it with the rules. And by the way, this slideshow will be linked in the description, so you can go and click on my links and learn how to do these different things. I have lots of resources for each of these. Podcasts. I've listed ideas for each of the main subjects kids study in school: math, science, history, and English. These are just ideas, and then maybe they aren't even good ones, but just to kind of get you thinking. Podcasts are a great way for kids to have to create a script and then produce something. Videos. Same thing, producing something. They have to really think through to make this a good video. So there's all kinds of things that kids could do. They could actually film, a play of some sort. They could film something happening in the world. It could just be them going over what their thinking was for their essay that they wrote. Google Auto Draw. So kids can say, start drawing a shape, and then a nice sketch pops up at the top. So the program senses what they're drawing and gives them these options so they can insert these really nice sketches and draw really cool pictures. Google Slides ebook. Teachers could use this to create workbooks or, like textbooks for kids to use, but kids can, of course, use them to make ebooks that show their learning. A Google Slides also, choose your own adventure. So in Google Slides, you have the option to link to other slides in the presentation. And so that means kids could say, do you choose to stay in the classroom or do you leave the room? And then there's 2 different outcomes or 3 different outcomes or whatever you want it to be. Google Arts and Culture, super cool website. Of course, you probably think, oh, that's just for art teachers. No, you can use this as an abstract, creative type of activity where kids go and they find a work of art that, they can see a math problem in it and they write the math problem about it, or like the energy levels of the solid phase of matter. So this is a very, very abstract type of lesson. But I think it can be super powerful. And along the way, they're actually going to learn about history and art just from viewing the site. There's also virtual museum tours too. Super, super cool. Okay, like book snaps. It's based off Snapchat, where you take a picture of something and then you add your annotations and you add your feelings, like your Bitmoji or something. So kids just could take a picture of work, take a picture of an article, take a picture of a lab they did, and then they add those annotations to it. Take a photo. So it could just be them taking a photo and uploading it as their assignment with some kind of explanation of what their thinking was. Like in math, something that shows an obtuse angle, or in government, something that represents that balance of power, but it's not showing the balance of power, but something that represents it. This is also very abstract, kind of like Google Arts and Culture. So it's going to really make kids think outside the box. Of course, discussions. You might think, no, this is just kids engaging and talking through an idea, but this actually requires a lot of that creative mind, as long as they have time before the discussion to think through their ideas. So if they're given oh, here's a list of questions, think about what you're going to say, and then go in and have that discussion. If you allow that think time, discussions can be super awesome for making kids think up creative solutions, because they're going to hear an idea they had not considered, and they're going to, see how that fits in with their own line of thinking. Coding. So now if your school has already taught kids how to do some basic coding, this would be good. If you're starting out, this takes a lot of time to teach kids how to code. Even though it's block coding, it actually can be a little more complicated than, it looks so colorful and simple. It actually is kind of complicated. So if kids don't have experience with that and you don't have experience with that, this might take too much time to use, in a useful, efficient kind of way to teach a concept. Again, if kids already know how to do this, it's worth your time for you to learn and to assign, a lesson. This is a Scratch website. It's free and super awesome if you know how to use it. A virtual breakout. So this is also kind of a time-consuming type of thing, but you can create a virtual breakout. So especially if you have a meeting place where kids can be put into groups and they can work together, to solve this problem. So these are called digital breakouts. Teachers were using them in the classroom before. It can happen online as well because it's all built on a website, in a digital form. So they do need to work in teams, I think, if it's a true breakout room, because it can be, really complicated and you really have to think outside the box to solve these problems. But if you wanted to make it more concrete and linear, kids could do this on their own, but you don't want to make it too complicated because kids get stumped and they're like, give up. But if they have someone to talk to, that socializing, kind of propels them on. And those were 12 ideas. Don't forget, the chief enemy of creativity is good sense. Throw the sense out the window and have fun.